Hi everybody, I'm delighted and very grateful to be here with you remotely today to share a little bit about how I have been able to implement green chemistry, at least some green chemistry concepts in a private liberal arts and sciences curriculum. This is a very challenging adventure but also extremely rewarding, so I'm hoping that by the end of this presentation I would have been able to convey to you how we can use green chemistry as a driving force, not only for our students to be able to understand the world around us a little bit better, but also for us as professors. So before I dive in the content of this presentation, I want to give you a little bit of background information about who I am and most importantly what Washington College is all about, so that you get to appreciate a little bit better who we are, what we do, and the power of our location here in Chestertown, Maryland. So I'm Marteel-Parrish. I have a PhD in chemistry, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my personal background in a few minutes. I'm currently a professor of chemistry at Washington College as well as the co-chair, and I have been invested as the first Frank Cregan chair in green chemistry about 6 years ago actually now, and this all happened obviously at Washington College here in the chemistry department. So let me tell you a little bit about who I am and what I do here at Washington College. So by now you probably noticed that I do have an accent. I actually was born and raised in France until I decided to come to the United States to pursue some graduate studies. Before I came to the United States, I actually did all of my undergraduate studies and some of my graduate studies in France, and I obtained an engineering degree in material science from the École Polytechnique Universitaire de Lille in the north of France. I actually came right after I got my engineering degree. I obtained a PhD in chemistry with concentration in material science from the University of Toledo in Ohio. And right after I got my PhD, I was hired here at Washington College as a visiting assistant professor. And I went through the rank of being an assistant professor, associate professor. And about 5 years ago, I obtained the title of full professor in chemistry. I've also been the chair or the co-chair or the deputy chair for pretty much the past 8 years in the chemistry department here at Washington College. Teaching is really important at Washington College. It's actually our our first priority as professors. And so I have been involved in the teaching of a variety of courses, ranging from general chemistry, which is our typical introductory course in chemistry, but also some upper level courses such as inorganic chemistry, material science, green and sustainable chemistry. I designed a 4-credit seminar course for our chemistry majors, as well as most recently I was involved in the design of a greener art through greener chemistry course. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how green chemistry, the implementation of green chemistry has happened in those courses. And I also want to tell you that even if teaching comes first, research is important. I wouldn't be where I am today if I wouldn't have a passion for research. So it was really important to me to not only implement green chemistry concepts and principles in my teaching, but also in my research, especially with students in the field of green and sustainable chemistry. And I will tell you all about it a little bit later. Besides being a teacher and a researcher, I also do quite a bit of service here at Washington College, and I like to be involved outside of the classroom as well as in the community of Chestertown. I served as the advisor for the National Honor Society in Chemistry for the past 7 years. I'm also a member of the pre-medical committee at Washington College, which means that I oversee the students who are going to be applying to either medical school or dental school or veterinary school. And also I'm a faculty council member. Faculty council members are actually, they serve as the liaison between the president and its office as well as the faculty. And so I've tried to involve students actually in a lot of some outreach activities that I have done here as the advisor for the National Honor Society in Chemistry. And I'm also on the advisory board for the Green Chemistry Commitment. So some of you may actually know, and some of you may actually also be on this board. The Green Chemistry Commitment is an initiative that was started by Amy Cannon and John Warner being one of the two fathers of green chemistry. They started this initiative, which is pretty much based in Beyond Benign in Massachusetts, and they've been extremely successful in order to really spread the word about green chemistry, how we can implement green chemistry in the K through 12 curriculum especially. So here through each slide you're going to see I've tried to incorporate some pictures so that you get to know a little bit more about who I am, but also what our campus looks like, what type of activities our students are involved in, as well as what we do here on this campus. So you can see on this slide here a picture of me with a student who recently graduated and who is now a physician assistant, but also I do a lot of travel and I represent Washington College, and I wish I could be there in Australia with you today. But I was representing actually Washington College in Rio de Janeiro. The picture that you see there was taken actually on the famous Copacabana beach, where the beach volleyball Summer Olympics actually happened. And on the other picture here on the top, you can see pretty much me and my two children in Florida. So we do travel a lot, and you're going to see that this kind of open mind is something that has served me well to implement some new concepts in the chemistry curriculum. I really want to share with you a little bit more details about Washington College and who we are, what do we do, and what purpose do we have, what mission is Washington College all about. So this is a private, selective, independent liberal arts and science college, and we have a unique location in the sense that yes, we are in Maryland, but Maryland is actually a state that is cut in half, so we are on the eastern shore of Maryland in the little colonial town of Chestertown. From a very historical point of view, Washington College has a unique actually background because it was founded by William Smith under the patronage of George Washington, and that happened in 1782. So we are the 10th oldest college in the country and the first college chartered in the new nation. In terms of our student population, we have just a little bit under 1,500 students who are coming from 35 states as well as 40 nations. And because of the strong sense of community that we have here, we have a student to faculty ratio of about 12:1. So I don't want you to think that every class is capped at 12 students. Actually, it's not the case at all. But on average, our student to faculty ratio is 12:1. So that really facilitates the one-on-one help with our students. Students are welcome to come and see us whenever they want. And we also have the right amenities, the right facilities to be able to do so. You see some pictures here of our campus, especially the bust of George Washington. And here, the last picture on your right is actually the Dental Science Center, where this video is actually being recorded. And on the second floor, so all the way to the top, is where my second home is, and that's the chemistry department. We have about around 100 full-time faculty members here, and more than 95% of them do actually have a terminal degree, which is a PhD. So I want to tell you a little bit more about this strong sense of community, because I really think this is also where sustainability can make a big difference. So because of who we are and because of our historical background, we actually tend to celebrate a lot of accomplishments. And one of the traditions that we do celebrate is that when our students are coming to Washington College, obviously as a first-year student, they can visit, and they do visit, George Washington's Mount Vernon estate. You can see actually a picture of this beautiful place here near Washington, D.C. So all of the incoming students have the opportunity to kind of gather together, sign our honor code, and then at the end of their 4 years here, they actually go back on a cruise to Mount Vernon, and they celebrate, obviously, their upcoming graduation. So this is kind of a nice celebration of accomplishments. Even if we are a Division III school, we do have a lot of pride in terms of our sports team, and one of them is the lacrosse, obviously, team at Washington College, and the famous War on the Shore, as well as we are known as the college that is actually giving the nation's largest literary prize to an undergraduate student, and that is our Sophie Kerr Prize. So the famous Sophie Kerr Prize, obviously we are known as a college in which writing is really important, but the Sophie Kerr Prize was actually given by Mrs. Sophie Kerr, who every year would actually give money to the graduating senior who has the best ability and promise for future fulfillment in the field of literary endeavor. And so this prize, it's quite large. By being large, I mean it's actually ranging anywhere from like $55,000 to more than $63,000. So the student who actually get this as a senior is definitely off to a great path here. Especially from a financial aspect. And so the picture that you see there on the top is a picture of our, some actually of our graduating seniors from actually 2 years ago. So let me tell you a little bit more about who we are and what we do here and how I have been successful in order to implement some of the green chemistry and sustainability components into my teaching. And this is mostly due because Washington College mission is all about challenging and inspiring emerging citizen leaders to discover lives of purpose and passion. So we really want our students to live and to embrace our core values, which are integrity, determination, curiosity, civility, leadership, and moral courage. So we want our students to really be open to diversity. That's why you see pictures there of a celebration for international students. We want our students to get out in the community. We want them to do things together in a team. We want them to explore the beautiful shore here that we have. The Chester River is right in our backyard, as well as be involved beyond their typical major courses. So we have a requirement at Washington College that every student has to take distribution courses that do have nothing to do with their major courses, because we want them to really develop some analytical thoughts, some clear communication skills, aesthetic insight, ethical sensitivity, as well as civic responsibility. So that's what we want. That's what we are actually trying to do here as professors, as well as bringing some academic rigor. And we want our students to really self-discover lots of things in a very supportive residential community of well-qualified, diverse, and motivated individuals. So the whole kind of background here is for you to realize that the enduring values of Washington College, which are based on critical thinking, effective communication, and moral courage, really move the world. To me, this is very important. It was very important for me to be in a place that really embraces this vision, because when you think about using green chemistry as a way to solve some of the global challenges and to see chemists actually as leaders in society, I found that the fact that this is our mission and our vision really could definitely put me on the right track to pretty much pursue my own life of purpose and passion, which is all about green chemistry. So having given you a little bit more background about who I am, where I'm coming from, and what Washington College is about, I want to really dive in the core of this presentation. And so just to give you a brief overview here of this presentation, as you can see, again, there's some pictures here of our students being involved in a wide range of activities, such as being involved in a concert or in a choir, being on the river, not just for fun, but also part of a class or part of a research project. It's a really kind of something that we are embracing here at Washington College, and therefore I want to tell you a little bit about 4 different components. I want at first to tell you about how I have been able to incorporate green chemistry in the chemistry curriculum, which kind of makes sense, right, as a chemist. That's what you would expect me to do. But I've also discovered that green chemistry is not an isolated branch of science. It has this cross-disciplinary nature that we really should emphasize and we should really embrace in a way. And therefore, also because I'm not just a teacher, I'm also a researcher, I want to tell you a little bit more about how I have been able to incorporate green chemistry in my research with students, obviously, with undergraduate students, as well as how I have been able to be involved in the community through outreach activities using green chemistry as a driving force to tell, elementary school kids that, hey, it is important that we think about what we're doing and we are trying to respect the planet that we live on. Therefore, at the end of this presentation, I also want to tell you a little bit about the outcomes from a personal as well as professional aspect, as well as how I plan on moving forward. So let's tackle the first component. Let's look into how I have been able to implement some of the green chemistry principles in the chemistry curriculum. So when I first got hired here at Washington College, and that was about 13 years ago now, I obviously, discovered that I was pretty much free to teach what I wanted to teach. I mean, there were some obviously core courses that I needed to teach, but I also had lots of freedom to develop new courses. And I've really got to develop a passion for curricular innovations. So one of the few things that I have done here is I have been able to incorporate green chemistry in our existing general chemistry laboratory curriculum, as well as in the inorganic chemistry laboratory curriculum. And this is because I teach those courses pretty much every year. And those courses are typical courses that students would take, right? So there's nothing exotic about the nature or the content of those courses. What I have been able to do, though, that is more unique and not so traditional, is that I have been able to implement a new course, a new 4-credit seminar course for our chemistry majors to really prepare them for what's coming up after graduation. So I can incorporate some concepts about what those sustainable goals means. What does that mean to be a 21st century citizen leader? And I have been able to do that not only in this new seminar course that I have taught now for the past 2 years, but also in my upper level course in material science, as well as in the greener and sustainable chemistry course that I have taught actually since I started here at Washington College. So I'm going to give you more details. I'm going to expand on every single one here of these different courses so that you get a chance to maybe learn something from me. I'm hoping, by the end of the presentation is that this is actually inspiring to you to do something like that too in your own institution. So, when you think about the green chemistry, how you can incorporate green chemistry, and if you really don't know where you're going at first, you can kind of start slow, right? And say, well, I'm not going to change everything. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I'm just going to go step by step. So one of the first implementation that is kind of logical is to say, well, we could actually introduce one experiment based on green chemistry in a typical general chemistry lab curriculum. And so that's what I have done actually quite recently, using an experiment on recycling polylactic acid, very well known as PLA. So let me tell you very briefly, I'm not going to go through obviously the different steps of the procedure, but very briefly why this can actually make pretty much an impact on students who are usually taking this course as first-year students. So the starting material to make PLA is usually corn waste or any starch-based materials. We can extract from actually the waste some sugars, and then the sugars can get fermented and we get something called lactic acid, right? It's typical carboxylic acid out there. Going through an oligomerization reaction as well as some catalytic reaction, we actually get a monomer that is called the lactide monomer, and that monomer obviously can get polymerized and we get a polymer, that polymer being polylactic acid or PLA. Okay? The really, really cool thing about PLA is that it is a starting material to many different types of plastic materials. So from PLA, we can make so many different things. We can make anything pretty much that goes from a plastic cup to plastic forks, knives, silverware, things like that. Everything that you could think about that is currently made of plastic, we can make it from waste pretty much, right? What I wanted my students to realize is then, what do we do after we have made something with PLA? Well, so what we can do is that we can actually not only we can use, right, something, a cup made of PLA, but we can transform that into something that is also useful, such as a cleaning solution, a detergent solution. So by the end of this experiment, so we only need about 3 hours total to do this, the students have learned about what is a renewable, right, resource, especially here in this case using renewable corn plastic made from polylactic acid. The students also learn about how we can recycle polylactic acid, and especially here in our case we use a cup. We cut the cup in little pieces. We go through actually some chemical reactions which are pretty fast, and at the end we end up with a cleaning solution that the students have to use. They have to actually use the solution, and they have to compare their cleaning solution made from PLA to a typical commercially available solution. And they also are able to use their critical thinking skills because they get to analyze PLA against the 12 principles of green chemistry. So they realize on their own, right, the power that green chemistry actually does have in terms of using something that would otherwise be put in the trash. I've just told you a little bit about how we can start slow, right, and implement one experiment on green chemistry in the general chemistry laboratory curriculum, but we can also go a step further and look into how we can do so in an upper level course, such as inorganic chemistry, which is typically a course taken by chemistry majors and minors. It is also a course required for the American Chemical Society certification. So our program in chemistry here at Washington College is certified by the American Chemical Society, and our students, our chemistry majors, do have the choice to either be on this SCS certification or not. So this is a course that up to now has been required for our SCS certified majors, but starting actually this fall, everybody will have to take inorganic chemistry or its equivalent course, which will be called actually chemistry of the elements starting next year. So what I have been able to do here is especially looking at the nature of the discipline of inorganic chemistry. This is not a very green discipline, right? There's nothing really environmentally friendly about a metal, for example, right? And inorganic chemistry obviously is full of metallic substances. So what can we do in a course like this where we kind of feel stuck? Well, so the first experiment that I have implemented is all about synthesizing some inorganic pigments such as barium white, chrome yellow, blue malachite, which are typically used actually in paintings. But what I'm doing here is that I'm actually using waste precipitates. So the precipitates that other students have made in general chemistry, as a matter of fact, I'm using those as the starting point to make those inorganic pigments. And one of the nice things about this is that since those pigments are ready to be used, students at the end of the inorganic chemistry lab curriculum, they can actually use these pigments in their own paintings and in their own projects and make something that is, interesting to them. And so one of the other implementation that I have been able to do is to introduce a little bit about photography. So we are pretty much here trying to make some salted paper prints, which are usually not environmentally friendly, but we are using as one of the starting reagents two salting formulas. One is based on gelatin and the other one is based on starch. And so the really nice thing about this is that the students get to use their own picture as negative, and they really enjoy going through this process because at the end they get their own picture printed on a canvas, and they can either use this to decorate their dorm room, or actually I've seen students giving this as a gift for Christmas because inorganic chemistry is typically taught in the fall semester. So the students have really embraced having a little bit of a non-traditional concepts taught in inorganic chemistry. And one of the students who have done this well and who has actually taken it to the next step is the student who is pictured over here. And her name is Laurel Jones. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about who she is later on. But she has been able to kind of use her passion for not only chemistry and mathematics, but also passion for art to go a little bit of a step further. And I will tell you all about what she has been able to do in the next few minutes. So This is good, right? General chemistry is taken by pretty much all the students here who have an interest in the sciences. Inorganic chemistry is, of course, taken mostly by chemistry majors and minors. So where do we go from there, right? Is there something else that we can do? And the answer is yes. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I have revamped our seminar course, which is all about preparing chemistry majors for the 21st century. This is a required course for all of our chemistry majors. It is a 4-credit course typically taken in their junior year. And what we are trying to do here is really think beyond professional preparation, right? We are trying to kind of expose our students to some global challenges, to some contemporary moral issues, and see how they would actually respond to that. So one of the first goals, actually, of this seminar course is to really prepare our students so that they are better citizens of the 21st century. So by the end of this 1-semester 4-credit course, they get to be very proficient in searching the scientific literature. They also have developed a habit of thinking about ethics and implementing actually their ethical values into their writing, into their research, but also looking at societal and moral issues from a completely different aspect. They also, because Washington College is all about writing and writing across disciplines, we really want to emphasize writing as much as we can, even in science courses, right? We don't have to be an English major to be able to write well. So we want our students to really be able to write, but in a way that will be useful to them. So most of our chemistry majors do actually, after they graduate from here with a bachelor's of science in chemistry, they go out and they pursue graduate studies. So they will need to write proposals at one point in their, obviously, graduate studies. So we want our students to be prepared for that. And we teach them how to write, actually, a research proposal so that they know what is expected and they are not so surprised when it's the time to actually do this for real. We also want them to be professionally prepared because obviously one of the most important ways that we assess our program is by what our students have been able to accomplish after they graduate from Washington College. So it's very important to us to prepare them from a professional point of view, to expose them to their different career options, to be able for them to be able to write a resume that is polished and ready to go. We also are helping them to go through what does it take to search for a job that actually matches their interests. And we go even one step further, is that we actually conduct mock interviews with them, whether it is for an internship or a real job, so that when the real interview comes, they are a lot less intimidated and a lot more prepared. And finally, we want them to be able to express themselves. We want them to be able to communicate very well, whether it is in an oral way, so we involve our students in discussions that they have to lead. We want our students to be able to peer evaluate their classmates. We want them to be able to present and stand up in front of a crowd and give a 20-minute presentation on a subject that they had no idea what it was about at the beginning. We also want them to be able to write well. So in this course, students do have to develop an ethics case study. They have to do an essay. They have to actually write a reflection essay on how their mock interviews went. And finally, they have to write an abstract for the proposal that they do have to write. And they also have to actually write a proposal, as well as they have to create a website. In our society, everybody surfs on the net, right? So everybody is on the internet all the time. So being able to develop those visual skills is very, very important too. So this course is all about that. It's all about preparing our chemistry majors for the 21st century, keeping in mind, that there is actually a great platform there to include some sustainability concepts in there too. One of the other ways that I have been able to implement green chemistry in the chemistry curriculum is through other elective in-depth courses. So this course here, obviously, that is based on my specialty, and that is material science, is a course taken mostly by chemistry majors and minors. It is an elective in-depth course, so students don't have to take it, they choose to take it. But it has given me pretty much a venue to include a little bit of environmental and societal issues, to try to expose the students to these concepts, as well as the concept of biomimicry, which is all about using nature as a model, as a measure, and as a mentor. And this is such an eye-opening concept to the students. They realize the power of nature. They realize that being aware of what nature can do and what nature tells us is really, really powerful. If we actually examine the feet of a gecko and their really special gripping abilities, then we can go and take this to the next step and design a shoe that has the same ability, right? We can also get inspired by, this beluga whale and look at how, this actually mammal can really go through the water and say, well, it goes fast, right? So can we actually mimic that and use this in the design of an airplane? Can we actually use and look at the way this bird looks like, and especially its beak, to get inspired by that and make a cutting tool that is very efficient at cutting, just based on the fact that the shape, right, of this cutting tool is really shaped after the beak of a bird. So we can get inspired by nature. It is absolutely amazing how much nature has to offer as a model and mentor. And finally, I want to tell you a little bit about this course that is all about, actually, not just implementing some concepts, but this course titled Greener and Sustainable Chemistry is all about green and sustainable chemistry, as the title obviously implies. This is also an elective in-depth course taken by chemistry majors and minors, and it's all based on the fact that green chemistry is at the core of a sustainable future. So what have I been able to do in this course? And actually, I have taught this course pretty much since I started here at Washington College, and this is the third time that I'm actually currently revising. I'm currently revising this summer this course for the third time. I really want the students to realize that we can use chemistry to try to solve, and I'm saying try to solve. I'm not saying that it is the answer, but I'm trying to expose the students to the fact that we can use chemistry and green chemistry to meet some of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals that you are probably all aware of. And we can also use green chemistry to help solve some emerging global challenges, some contemporary moral and social issues in our world. And so this course is all about that. That's really the foundation of the course. I also want the students to realize again on their own, right, that, hey, this is not just blah, blah, right? This is not just from a qualitative aspect. We can actually quantify the power of green chemistry through using assessment and metrics. So we can get data, and as a scientist, it's actually really important, right, to get data to really show that, green chemistry, it is powerful. We just have to be able to realize that and to approach this with an open mind. And finally, because I have been involved in the teaching of this kind of new and unique course that is blending art and chemistry, I really want the students to realize that green chemistry is not an isolated branch of science. It is actually a very inter and cross-disciplinary course. It is a concept that really goes across, that works across boundaries and across disciplinary boundaries. And I want the students to really realize this again on their own. And so this is what I have been able to do, and this is what I want to do and continue to do, because it's really important to me that students, even if they may be a biology major, they may be a physics major with a chemistry minor, they may be, some students who just have an interest, right, in the wording, green chemistry, what this is all about. Well, I can show them, or at least I'm trying to show them, that green chemistry does not just work for a science purpose, but it also works across disciplines. So by exposing students to concepts such as environmental sustainability, entrepreneurship, which really shows the students that business and economics and green chemistry are all intertwined. We can also look at how green chemistry can help some of the social disparities in our world. So we talk a little bit about sociology. For the students who have an interest in political science, we can definitely show that, hey, being a politically engaged scientist can actually make a lot of differences nowadays. And finally, I also want to be able to share with the students that even if you don't have any interest in being a chemistry major, you don't have any interest in working in the scientific field in the future, it is not that green chemistry can't be useful at all. And the wording chemistry should not push you away, because in this unique course that I have designed and actually co-taught with a colleague in the art department, we can actually implement green chemistry in about anything, and this art in the Anthropocene course is a typical example of how that has been done. So I want to tell you a little bit more about what this greener art through greener chemistry course was all about. So this course was actually funded by 2 different grants here at Washington College, especially one of them being for curricular innovation. This is a course for which I don't have a textbook. There's no textbook written, right? It's not your traditional art course. It's very unique in the sense that this course actually is can be taken for distribution, but can also be taken if you're a minor in art or a major in art or a major or minor in chemistry, as a matter of fact. So one of the most challenging aspects of this course for my colleague, Professor Heather Harvey from the Art and Art History Department at Washington College, is because we had a very wide variety of students. We had students who were first-year students and who had a great background in chemistry, right? And we had also seniors who pretty much did not have much of a background in science at all, but who were art majors, right? So we really had to find a way to tell them that, hey, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. What really matters here is that you understand how we can actually combine the two, and how green chemistry can be used as a driving force to make an art piece in a more environmentally friendly way. And so we have created 3 different units here based on the first one, exploring environmentally friendly paints. So the students are actually making paints from natural resources. We also had the students explore natural clay and actually harvest natural clay from plenty of different spots here next to the Chester River and in the community, and exploring not only how natural clay works and what you can do with that, but also combining it with found objects. And finally, how we have been able to use rust, as a matter of fact, as an artistic medium, because we really wanted to expose the students to the different categories of elements present in the periodic table. So if you actually look at those 3 different units, right, every component in terms of metals versus non-metals is covered there. Also, the different types of compounds based on their bonding, different types of bonding are present. Covalent bonding versus ionic bonding versus metallic bonding. So it was really a way for us to not only implement some of the art techniques, but also using environmentally friendly chemistry to show the students that we can incorporate all of this together to create a wonderful, wonderful art piece. And that was the goal of our final project in this course. The students actually were challenged to incorporate everything that they had learned in this course, from environmentally friendly paints to natural clay to a piece of rusty or corroded metal, any found objects that they had actually found on the ground going to campus or in the community. And so they really had to make sure that they incorporated every single piece in their final art piece, and I will actually show you some pictures of what they look like. But also, they had to explain what this final project really meant to them. And I wish that you could actually see some of their final project summaries, because not only did they have to really show the meaning from an artistic point of view, but also the meaning from a scientist point of view. And that was kind of an eye-opening venue for all of us. So this course not only pushed me out of my comfort zone, pushed my colleague, Professor Harvey, out of her comfort zone. I mean, I'm not an artist. I don't know, I really don't pretend to be either, but I learned so much. And what the students actually were able to take from this course was absolutely amazing. So the 5 pictures that you actually see there are pictures of the final projects from students in this course who have been able to really, take it beyond expectations. So all of these projects had a certain meaning to them, and they were able to really look at this project and say, hey, I've done that, right? I have actually blended chemistry and art together using green chemistry as the platform. So the cross-disciplinary nature of green chemistry is something that we really should expand on, and something that I will tell you more about how I plan to do that. But this is a powerful tool, and I really think that this is the way actually that we should look at green chemistry, because the student learning outcomes in this course really reflected kind of this thought. The fact that not only here do we practice art, do we practice chemistry, but we blend them together, and the students don't even realize that they are doing chemistry. Students can actually do chemistry outside of a typical chemistry lab, right? They can do this on the grass outside of this building here. So it's all about practicing. It's all about realizing on your own what it means. They also get to put their imagination and creativity skills to work. We are exposing students who are interested in science to art, and we are exposing art students to science, right? So they are typically learning from each other without us professors being involved. We are also able to implement very important concepts such as sustainability, safety, but also ethics. So ethics from a scientific point of view as well as from an artist point of view. And so there's so many more that we could take from courses like this that are based on the cross-disciplinary aspect of chemistry. So I'm going to switch gear a little bit and tell you about the second component of this presentation, which is all about how I have been able to incorporate green chemistry in my research. So as I mentioned earlier, right, it is very important for us, obviously, faculty members, to do research at Washington College. If we would not be successful researchers, we would actually not get tenured here. It's as simple as that. So we have to mentor and advise students. All of the students at Washington College who are seniors do have to fulfill a senior capstone project, senior capstone experience project, completely independently on their major. So even if you are a philosophy major, you still have to do a senior capstone experience, but it obviously does not have the same requirements as a chemistry major. In the chemistry department, we actually really want our students to gain some of the hands-on skills that they would need if they would go and work in industry after graduation, or if they would go to graduate school after graduation, for example. So we want to expose our students to this chemistry in practice. And so for me, it was really important, right, that I also expose those students to greener and sustainable chemistry. And one of the students whom I've talked to you about before, Laurel Jones, who actually was a double major in chemistry and mathematics, but had a passion for art, and she actually still does. She actually does have an Etsy website, and she sells some of her paintings. And she has now actually recently graduated from nursing school, but she really was essential in opening my mind about that cross-disciplinary nature of green chemistry that I told you about in the previous slide. So Laura was able to create, she was able to synthesize greener paints using either soil-based paint, so using a methyl cellulose and a casein binder, but she was also able to make watercolor paint using pretty much vegetables, fruit, spices, and not only did she create those paints, but they were usable. we could actually use them to paint something. And the pictures, the 3 pictures that you see right there, are actually paintings that she did, that she actually created, and that she actually managed to also show in an art exhibit here on campus, because that's what she does. You know, she really is passionate about art, and painting is one way for her to actually relieve some of the stress. And so that was kind of a, the first step for me to say, hey, Laurel seems to be really passionate about this. Can we teach a course actually on, art and green chemistry? And that's really why I was really grateful to have the opportunity to teach this new course this past spring, which will be taught again actually in a year from now. I also had a student as a senior who was a double major chemistry and English, and who also minored in creative writing. As a matter of fact, he was one of the 5 finalists of the Sophie Kerr Prize, Ryan Manning. And so Ryan has a very interesting background, right? He's interested in chemistry, but he's also interested in writing, but he also was really interested in the print making process. So I said, Dr. Martell, looking at the way paper is made, it's really not environmentally friendly at all. And I said, well, no, it's not. So he was really in search of how can we actually make paper in a greener manner. So he really started here to think about what I can do. What can I do? What kind of, how can I be useful in terms of paper making? And so he conducted analysis of treatment methods used to prepare kozo fiber. So kozo fibers are traditional Japanese mulberry fibers actually that are used in Japanese paper making, and there's lots of resources already published on this. So he really started with digging in the literature, finding out how this paper was being made, and then he examined the effects of 3 different physical variables on the paper making process, such as soak time, cook time, and base fiber ratio. And he looked at the effect of those variables on the quality of the pulp that was produced from the fiber, obviously cooked in small batches. And his results are really interesting, and if you want to know more about this, I can definitely share some of that with you at a later time. Finally, so I was telling you all about green chemistry in the curriculum, the cross-disciplinary aspect of green chemistry, how I have been able to expose students to green chemistry from a research point of view. Finally, I really want to tell you how I have been able to pass on the word to the community about green chemistry. This is something that I really value. As a matter of fact, I don't think I would be who I am if I would not be involved in the community. Not just because I'm a mother of 2 children going through, obviously, the elementary school system here in Kent County, but mostly because it's my way to give back. I love to give back to the community. And so I have been able to do lots of outreach activities in elementary schools that were based on green chemistry experiments, but I'm also a character counts coach, which means that every week I go to an elementary school classroom, especially in 2nd grade this past year, on this presentation and how I plan on moving forward, not only from a personal but also professional point of view. If we think about systems out there and thinking about all these different systems that we have, right? The human system, the scientific system, legal systems, and if we can actually connect the study of chemistry to important issues in students' lives, they are going to be a lot more receptive, and they are going to be also obviously retaining the materials a lot better. So the way to do this, and I'm not saying it's the only way, but one way to look at it is to place chemistry in the wider world, right? Not just here at Washington College on this campus, but we have to open students' eyes so that they see the forest without losing sight of the trees, so that our students are able to analyze the connections between chemical systems and everything else. Physical, biological, ecological, and human systems such as legal, social, behavioral, economic, political, and there's many, many more, right? So the beauty of this is that I believe that chemistry should be seen as a science for society. We as chemists should be leaders in our society, not just from a scientific point of view, but also from a social aspect. if we do engage in systems thinking, then we'll be able to work across disciplinary boundaries so that people outside of our world, right, do realize that, hey, we can actually maximize the benefits of chemistry while minimizing its hazards, right? Because there's this negative perception about chemistry that it's all about pollution. It has a very negative perception associated with pollution. Well, I would like to be able to change that. And finally, as I mentioned before, chemists should be seen as leaders in our society. So talking about leaders, right, where does that all lead in terms of my, professional development here? What I really would like to continue to be pretty much pushed out of my comfort zone. I like to be challenged. I want to be able to push the boundaries of green chemistry and continue to actually use my curricular innovation skills. I also would like to implement green chemistry at many different levels of instruction and in other research projects, even outside of the sciences. And finally, I would like to be able to obviously continue to publish because it's the way to communicate with other people, right? With people involved actually with the green chemistry community, and that is actually a picture of the cover of the book that I published a couple of years ago, all about green chemistry and engineering a pathway to sustainability, that I have co-written with Martin Abraham. So to kind of wrap up and conclude here in terms of what my next step is, the way I define myself actually as a chemist, as a material scientist 13 years ago is definitely not the same way as I define myself today. And that's perfectly fine with me. Things are changing. Our society is changing. The way I teach has changed. My mission and vision have changed and will probably change again, right? Especially knowing now that I can really incorporate the system thinking approach. I love to be pushed out of my comfort zone, but most importantly, I really want to continue to evolve, right? I'm not a static professor now. I've reached, the rank of full professor, and I'm all settled. No, actually, I'm not. I really want to evolve as a teacher, as a scholar, as a mentor, as a community participant, because otherwise, I think that I would not fulfill a sense of purpose, right? When I go to bed every night, I'm asking myself, hey, have I been useful today? Have I actually accomplished something so that I've helped people? Have I been useful? And if the answer is yes, then I can tell you that I don't have any problem, obviously, going to sleep. But I really do believe that in the quote here from Mark Twain, that 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things that you did not do than by the ones you did do. So throw off the bowlines. And as somebody who is passionate about sailing, I can tell you that I'm happy to do that anytime. Catch the trade winds in your sails. Explore, dream, discover. That's what we want to do, right? We want to have fun at the same time as having a fulfilled life, right? We want to push those boundaries. We want to be adventurous. We want to do something that nobody else has done before. So this presentation would actually not be complete without acknowledging the people who have made this possible, right? Obviously, I wouldn't be here today without the support, the help, the love of my French and American families, especially my husband, Dr. Marteel-Parrish, my two children, Martin and Marie, and my friends from all over the world. I think, the fact that we speak different languages in my household, we travel all over the place. I have family literally all over the world, especially a brother in South America. Really was kind of, hey, life is great. All of these people do things differently. We should learn from nature. So I think the way that I'm now aware of what my surroundings are and what I can do to obviously try to help solve some of our sustainability issues, this is something that has been kind of really a huge part of my professional development. I would also like to thank my colleagues in the chemistry department who have always been supportive, not only when I was on tenure track, but also as chair. I've been able to move initiatives forward thanks to them. I would also like to thank the current and the past administration at Washington College. They are actually supporting financially for me to be able to do a video presentation here today. And so they've been essential in the sense that, you know, I haven't had any obstacles on my route here to be able to go to conferences, to be able to do some curricular innovations. And they were also very receptive that, hey, you know, this is a private liberal arts institution. If we are not pushing people out of their comfort zone in this type of institution, then we would never do it, right? So they were extremely supportive. And finally, I want to thank the Office of Information Technologies at Washington College, because without the help of Mitchell here, I would not be able to do this by myself, right? So here we go, you know, some acknowledgements here. And I just want to end by saying that if you have any questions, if you actually want to know more details about anything that I have talked about, please feel free to reach me at the following email address. I'm happy to, you know, even chat with you. I'm happy to answer emails. I'm happy to share some of my syllabi with you because I think it's essential so that we can all move forward and live a life of purpose. So thank you so much again for giving me the opportunity to give this video presentation today, and I look forward to hearing from you.